The pain of betrayal isn't the stab, it's the face behind it. Judas betrays Jesus. Matthew 26, 14, 16, 47-50. Judas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples, had walked with him for years, witnessing his miracles and teachings. As one of Jesus' closest followers, Judas was trusted and welcomed as a brother. But Judas, blinded by greed, approached the chief priests with a deal. He would betray Jesus in exchange for 30 pieces of silver. When the time came, Judas led a group of soldiers to Jesus, signaling his identity with a kiss. This kiss, a symbol of affection, became the very mark of betrayal. The depth of Jesus' pain wasn't merely from the betrayal itself, but from seeing it come from a close friend. Judas, whom Jesus had loved and trusted, had turned against him. This wasn't a stranger, but someone he'd considered family. Delilah deceives Samson. Judges 16, 4-21. Samson, blessed with supernatural strength, fell in love with Delilah, a Philistine woman. Despite their differences, he trusted her deeply, confiding in her as his partner. But the Philistine rulers offered Delilah a handsome sum to discover the secret of Samson's strength. Delilah, tempted by money, persistently questioned Samson until he finally revealed his secret. His strength lay in his uncut hair. That night, Delilah betrayed him by cutting his hair, rendering him defenseless against his enemies. Samson's devastation came not just from losing his strength, but from realizing that the woman he loved and trusted had sold him out. Cain and Abel. Genesis 4, 1-10. Cain and Abel, the first sons of Adam and Eve, both offered sacrifices to God. Abel's offering pleased God, while Cain's did not. Instead of seeking to improve himself, Cain became consumed by jealousy, feeling overshadowed by his younger brother. In a shocking turn, Cain lured Abel to a field and murdered him in cold blood, unable to contain his resentment any longer. Abel's betrayal wasn't just a murder, it was the ultimate betrayal by a sibling. In families, the pain of betrayal is amplified because of the expectation of loyalty and love. David and Absalom. 2 Samuel 15. King David, a revered and wise leader, faced heartbreak when his own son, Absalom, plotted to overthrow him. Absalom, hungry for power, won the hearts of the people through deceit, promising them better leadership. Eventually, Absalom gathered an army and forced David to flee from his own kingdom, a kingdom David had fought tirelessly to protect. For David, the pain wasn't merely about losing his throne. It was the knowledge that his beloved son had turned against him. Joseph sold by his brothers. Genesis 37, 12-36. Joseph, the favored son of Jacob, was hated by his brothers due to their father's favoritism. They plotted to kill him, but instead sold him into slavery for 20 pieces of silver, thinking it would be the end of him. As Joseph was led away, bound and frightened, he saw the faces of his brothers who had betrayed him. Joseph's pain lay not just in his enslavement, but in the knowledge that his own brothers, people who should have been his protectors, had sold him out of jealousy. Peter denies Jesus. Matthew 26, 69-75. Peter, one of Jesus' most passionate disciples, had sworn to stand by Jesus no matter what. However, when Jesus was arrested, Peter's fear took over, and he denied knowing Jesus 3 times. As the rooster crowed, Peter remembered Jesus' prediction, and he felt overwhelming guilt and sorrow. For Jesus, Peter's denial was not just a rejection, but a deep wound from a friend he had trusted. Miriam and Aaron question Moses. Numbers 12, 1-15. Moses' siblings, Miriam and Aaron, began questioning his authority, criticizing his choice of wife and his leadership. Although Moses was their brother and had led them faithfully, they doubted his worthiness. God intervened, punishing Miriam with leprosy as a result of her rebellion. For Moses, the pain of this betrayal was not just the criticism, but the fact that it came from his own family. Job's wife and friends abandon him. Job 2.9, 4-5. Job, who had lost everything, faced betrayal from his wife and friends in his darkest hours. His wife urged him to curse God and die, while his friends accused him of wrongdoing, assuming his suffering was punishment. Rather than comfort him, they abandoned him emotionally. Job's suffering was magnified by the lack of support from those he trusted. The golden calf, Exodus 32. While Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving God's commandments, the Israelites grew restless and asked Aaron to make an idol for them to worship. They quickly abandoned their faith, betraying Moses and God by worshipping a golden calf. When Moses returned and saw their actions, he was furious and heartbroken. The betrayal was profound for Moses, who had sacrificed much for the people he led. Saul and David's friendship, 1 Samuel 18-20. Saul, once a mentor to David, grew envious of David's success and favor with the people. Though David served Saul faithfully, Saul's jealousy consumed him, leading him to plot David's death. David, who admired Saul, was devastated by his king's betrayal. Saul's betrayal wasn't just an attack on David's life, it was a shattering of trust between a mentor and his student. Jacob and Esau, Genesis 27, 1-41. Jacob and Esau were twins, and as the elder, Esau was entitled to their father, Isaac's blessing. However, with the encouragement of his mother, Rebekah, Jacob deceived Isaac and stole Esau's blessing. When Esau discovered the betrayal, he was heartbroken and vowed revenge. This betrayal from his own brother created a lasting rift between them. Esau's shock and hurt lay in the fact that his own brother had taken advantage of his trust. David and Ahithophel, says 2 Samuel 15:12, 16:23. Ahithophel, once King David's trusted advisor, turned against him to support Absalom's rebellion. As David fled from his own son's coup, he learned that Ahithophel, a man whose counsel he had valued and trusted, was advising his enemies. David was devastated by the knowledge that someone so close had sided with those trying to kill him. Ahithophel's betrayal struck David because it wasn't just a loss of strategic counsel, but a personal attack. King Joash and Zechariah, 2 Chronicles 24-17-22. King Joash was once close to the priest Jehoiada, who raised him and guided him in godly ways. But after Jehoiada's death, Joash turned against Jehoiada's son, Zechariah. When Zechariah warned him of his sinful ways, Joash betrayed him by ordering his execution. Zechariah's last words reflected his heartbreak. May the Lord see and avenge. For Zechariah, the betrayal was more than just a matter of life and death. It was a personal heartbreak from a king his family had protected. Jesus' family doubts him. Mark 3:20-21, John 7:5. Despite Jesus' teachings and miracles, even his own family doubted him. At one point, they tried to seize him, thinking he was out of his mind. His brothers mocked him, saying that if he wanted to be known, he should perform his miracles publicly. This doubt from his own family was a deep source of pain for Jesus. The disbelief from his family added to the burden of Jesus' ministry, as he faced betrayal from those who should have been his greatest supporters. The Israelite leader's betrayal of Jeremiah, Jeremiah 38:1-6. Jeremiah, a prophet who warned the Israelites to turn back to God, faced betrayal from the very leaders he sought to guide. When his prophecies of judgment made them uncomfortable, they threw him into a cistern to die. Jeremiah, left in the mud, was heartbroken, feeling abandoned by his own people. For Jeremiah, the betrayal wasn't just life-threatening. It was emotionally devastating to be rejected by those he had dedicated his life to help. Haman's deception of King Xerxes, Esther 3:1-10. Haman, a high-ranking official, used his influence to deceive King Xerxes into ordering the extermination of the Jewish people, including Queen Esther's own family. Unaware of Esther's heritage, Xerxes trusted Haman's counsel, only to later realize the betrayal and harm caused by the man he'd trusted. Xerxes' betrayal stemmed from trusting someone close who manipulated him for personal revenge. Aaron and Miriam's jealousy toward Moses, Numbers 12:1-15. Aaron and Miriam, siblings of Moses, became envious and questioned his authority, criticizing his marriage and his leadership. When God punished Miriam with leprosy for her betrayal, it highlighted the depth of her jealousy and the hurt she caused. For Moses, the betrayal was painful because it came from his own family members who should have been his greatest supporters. Ananias and Sapphira's deception, Acts 5:1-11. Ananias and Sapphira sold property and deceitfully withheld part of the proceeds while pretending to donate it all to the apostles. When their deceit was exposed, they faced severe consequences, underscoring the breach of trust within the early Christian community. Their betrayal wasn't just about lying, but breaking the community's trust. Eli's sons' corruption, 1 Samuel 2:12-17, 22-25. Eli's sons, Hophni and Phinehas, served as priests but corrupted their duties, exploiting worshippers for personal gain. Their actions betrayed the trust of the people and dishonored their father, leaving Eli heartbroken and the people disillusioned. For Eli, this betrayal was not only a failure of duty, but a personal heartbreak. Reuben's sin against Jacob, Genesis 35:22. Reuben, Jacob's eldest son, betrayed his father by sleeping with Bilhah, Jacob's concubine. This act of disrespect was not only a moral failing, but a direct insult to Jacob, who felt dishonored by his own son's actions. Reuben's betrayal was deeply personal, shattering family unity. David and Michal's disdain, 2 Samuel 6:16-23. After bringing the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, David danced before God in a public display of worship. His wife, Michal, looked upon him with scorn, ridiculing his behavior and mocking his enthusiasm. For David, this disdain from his own wife for his devotion was hurtful. David's betrayal lay not in words alone, but in the lack of support from his partner. The spy's report and Israel's doubt, Numbers 13-14. Moses sent 12 spies into Canaan to report back on the land God had promised. While 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, encouraged taking the land, the other 10 spread fear and doubt among the Israelites, leading them to rebel against God's promise. This collective disbelief disheartened Moses as the people he had led for so long turned away. For Moses, the betrayal was in the people's lack of faith and trust. Nehemiah and the disloyal nobles, Nehemiah 5. As Nehemiah led the rebuilding of Jerusalem's walls, he learned that some Jewish nobles were exploiting their own people through high-interest loans, adding to the city's struggles. These nobles, who should have been protecting their people, betrayed them instead for personal gain. Nehemiah's frustration stemmed from this internal betrayal by leaders who prioritized profit over unity. Daniel and the satrap's deception, Daniel 6. Daniel, a high-ranking official in Persia, was betrayed by jealous colleagues who manipulated King Darius into issuing a decree prohibiting worship of any god except the king. They knew Daniel's faith would lead him to disobey, and when he did, they accused him, leading to his being thrown into the lion's den. For Daniel, the betrayal lay in the scheming of trusted colleagues. Jesus in his hometown. Mark 6, 1-6. Jesus returned to his hometown, hoping to teach and heal there. However, the people who had known him all his life dismissed him, doubting his authority and undermining his teachings. Their disbelief left Jesus amazed at their lack of faith, unable to perform many miracles due to their closed hearts. For Jesus, the betrayal lay in the disbelief of those who should have known him best. The Sadducees and Pharisees' rejection of Jesus. John 7:32, 11:47-53. Although Jesus came as the promised Messiah, the religious leaders of his time rejected him, plotting to kill him despite witnessing his miracles. Their envy and refusal to accept him ultimately led to his crucifixion. Jesus knew their intentions, yet was deeply saddened by their lack of faith. The betrayal here is in the leader's rejection of the truth. For many today, betrayal comes when people who should be open to positive change instead resist. The phrase, "The pain of betrayal isn't the stab, it's the face behind it," speaks to the profound pain of betrayal, highlighting the emotional impact of recognizing the source of our hurt. Imagine a close friend, a sister, a spouse, a parent, a colleague, etc. You have always trusted, someone with whom you have shared your deepest secrets and supported through thick and thin. You might feel invulnerable in their presence, believing that their loyalty is unwavering. However, when you discover that this person has been gossiping about you behind your back, the initial shock of betrayal is quickly overshadowed by the realization of their disloyalty. This moment of revelation is excruciating, as it forces you to confront not only the act of betrayal itself, but also the painful truth that someone you considered a confidant is the very one who has harmed you. It is this confrontation, the moment you turn around and see who is holding the knife, that delivers the most crushing blow, leaving you to grapple with the loss of trust and the painful acknowledgement that the person you relied on is capable of inflicting such hurt. The emotional scars left by this betrayal can linger long after the initial pain, reminding us of the fragility of trust and the complexities of human relationships.